Hello, I'm Mary Johnson, the author of An Unquenchable Thirst, a memoir about the 20 years I lived as a nun in the Missionaries of Charity, the community founded by Mother Teresa of Calcutta. My memoir is full of good stories. I made sure that it doesn't preach or whine. The book begins with me at 19 years old, on my way to the South Bronx to enter one of the church's most rigorous communities of nuns. I was drawn by the sisters' radical life of total dedication to God and service to the poor. I believed Mother Teresa and her sisters could teach me how to love. The day she pinned crucifixes to our blouses, Mother Teresa told each young woman in my class of aspiring nuns that it was our job to become saints. A fairly daunting task. For the next 20 years, I struggled to conform to religious ideals that remained always beyond my reach. I disagreed with my superiors. Once I picked a superior up and shook her. Despite my obvious problems with pride, I loved God and my sisters, and I rose in the ranks. Eventually, I was entrusted with preparing sisters for final vows and with rewriting the fundamental documents of the Missionaries of Charity. While I may have looked like a good nun on the outside, I surprised myself by falling in love with a sister, then a priest. Years later, when I was writing about my years as a sister, it was fairly easy to write about the less complicated times, teaching gypsy children to read and write in Rome, beginning new missions in Washington, D.C. and Winnipeg, meeting Princess Diana. It was harder to write about my complicated relationship with Mother Teresa and with myself. For each of my 20 years as a nun, I spent time with Mother Teresa, speaking with her, praying with her, learning from her. I traveled with Mother, I cooked for her, and I spoke to her of my dreams. Sometimes Mother scolded me. Occasionally she asked my advice. During my years in the convent, I spent more time studying Mother's teachings than perhaps any other sister had until then. The sisters considered me an expert on Mother's spirituality and sent me across Europe to teach her message of love, a message I deeply appreciated. But my needs for friendship and intimacy grew, as did my frustrations with community politics and the way my higher superiors limited my work with the poor. I began to feel as though I were suffocating. The day I told Mother Teresa that I was leaving the Missionaries of Charity was one of the most painful of my life. She looked up at me and, speaking of herself in the third person, as she often did, she said, "Mother could believe this about anyone, but she cannot believe it about you." Now, more than a decade after leaving the convent, I've decided to tell my story, even though I know the sisters would prefer I keep quiet. Talking about what went on in community was always taboo. Even to each other, we sisters rarely spoke of what we truly thought and felt. When I sat to write, I had to keep reminding myself, be honest, don't flinch. It's my hope that by talking frankly, even about the embarrassing parts of my story, I can encourage honest dialogue about life's big questions. Love, faith, and purpose. An unquenchable thirst is my gift to you. I hope you'll enjoy my stories and that you'll join in the conversation at unquenchabletthirst.com. Thank you.